Today, we're diving into an incredible story. It's about two men, two massive financial collapses, and the one bank that found itself right at the heart of both. It's a tale that stretches across a full century, and it really makes you ask a huge question. When the whole system is about to fail, who actually has the power to save it? I mean, just picture it for a second. There's total panic on Wall Street, banks are going under left and right, and the entire financial system is just teetering on the edge of a cliff. A moment like that calls for a savior. But who on earth has the power, the money, and just the sheer force of will to step into that chaos? You heard that right. Twice, 100 years apart, when the United States was staring into a financial abyss, both the government and the markets turned to a leader from the House of Morgan. On one hand, you have John Pierpont Morgan, the original Gilded Age tycoon who basically built modern corporate America. And on the other, you've got Jamie Dimon, the CEO who steered the modern JPMorgan Chase through the absolute firestorm of 2008. Two crises, a century apart, but one name at the center. So let's start at the beginning. First up, let's go all the way back to the original Titan himself, the man whose name is literally synonymous with American finance, J.P. Morgan. Look, Morgan wasn't just a player in the economy. He was practically the architect. From his earliest days, he was all about consolidation, famously creating U.S. Steel in 1901. But his real, defining moment, the one for the history books, came in 1907, when he had to step into a role that nobody else could possibly fill. And you have to understand this key fact. Back in 1907, America had no Federal Reserve. There was no central bank to come in and stop the bleeding. So when trust companies started failing and panic just ripped through the country, there was no safety net. So JP Morgan, a private citizen, basically became the central bank. He literally gathered the country's most powerful bankers in his mansion and through his own sheer force of will, orchestrated a private bailout of the entire American financial system. Incredible. So how did we get from that institution, forged in a crisis by one man, to the global behemoth we know today? Well, the journey was all about massive consolidation. The JPMorgan Chase of today was really born from two gigantic deals. First, back in 2000, Chase Manhattan bought the legendary JPMorgan & Co. Then, just 4 years later, that new company turned around and acquired Bank One, which brought with it a huge consumer banking operation, and, critically, its star CEO, a guy named Jamie Dimon. And we're not talking about some small merger here. This was a $58 billion deal. It was colossal. It basically created a true financial supermarket, combining that elite investment banking reputation with a massive Main Street retail presence. And that move perfectly positioned the company for the decades ahead and set the stage for the next great crisis and the next Morgan-like figure to step up. Okay, so this brings us to our second titan, Jamie Dimon. When he took over, Dimon brought with him a philosophy that would turn out to be revolutionary, precisely because of how simple and disciplined it was. I mean, just check out this quote from his 2006 letter to shareholders. This is a full 2 years before the crash. While all the other banks were getting rich off these super risky subprime mortgages, Dimon was actively telling his bank, nope, we're not doing that. He saw the bubble forming and chose stability over those easy, short-term profits. This all laddered up to what he famously called the fortress balance sheet. Now, you have to remember, in the mid-2000s, this was a deeply unpopular idea. The rest of Wall Street was chasing crazy high returns, taking on tons of debt, and getting into complex risks they didn't even understand. Dimon did the exact opposite. His whole strategy was built on intense financial discipline. Get rid of risky assets, cut costs like crazy, and basically prepare the bank to survive a massive storm. And wouldn't you know it, that storm arrived with a vengeance in 2008. What happened next was this incredible echo of 1907, just with a new leader at the center of it all. So, the first big domino to fall was the investment bank Bear Stearns. Its stock just absolutely cratered, falling from a peak of $170 a share all the way down to $2. The firm was literally minutes away from bankruptcy, and it was threatening to take the whole system down with it. So who did the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department call in the middle of the night? Jamie Dimon. Just like JP Morgan a century before him, Dimon was asked to step in and be the savior. Thanks to that fortress balance sheet, JPMorgan Chase was strong enough to absorb not just Bear Stearns, but also Washington Mutual, which was the largest bank failure in American history.
And just like that, they stabilized the system and came out of the crisis as the most powerful bank in the country.
So when you step back and look at the story of these two men and their actions in these two defining crises, what does it really tell us about the institution they built? Well, the results kind of speak for themselves, don't they? By 2023, you can see JPMorgan Chase's market cap just dwarfing a major rival like Goldman Sachs. The legacy of both Morgans, one of building through consolidation, the other of surviving through discipline, created a financial institution of almost unmatched scale and power.
And today, the bank that twice acted as the nation's lender of last resort says its purpose is to make dreams possible. It's a mission that's meant to connect its enormous financial power to a wider social good, part of its goal to become, as they put it, the most respected financial services firm in the world.
But this whole story leaves us with a fundamental and kind of tricky question. The legacy of JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon is one of stepping up when nobody else could. Their actions reinforce this idea that their bank isn't just another player in the system, but maybe, just maybe, it's the system's ultimate guardian. And that raises a really critical question for all of us. If the entire system depends on one bank for its salvation, what does that really say about the system itself?